Guten Morgen und frohes neues Jahr. I didn't think I'd be back on my YouTube channel, but here we are. I hope you had a restful Christmas break. So, today we are going to be talking about tenses, and before we do, we're going to have a quick quote from Master Uguay. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. Tenses are really important in English and other languages, and so we're going to be looking at German tenses. So that's our key grammar for today, and it's going to be quite tricky, but hopefully some of it will help you as you navigate tenses in German. Why are we doing this? Well, you're going to need tenses for all 4 papers in GCSE German, for your speaking, for your reading, for your writing, and for your listening. And they come up in all of the mark schemes, particularly in the writing mark scheme, in the linguistic knowledge and accuracy mark grid, okay, where to get the top band you need to consistently, successfully give reference to the past, present and future events. So the examiner is really looking out for whether you can form the tenses in the past, present and future. So what are the 6 tenses that you need to know for GCSE German? I wonder if you can have a think to yourself and think about what might the 6 tenses be, what are they called? You may wish to pause the video now to have a quick think about it. Okay, so the 6 tenses are the pluperfect tense, the imperfect tense, the perfect tense, the present tense, the future tense and the conditional tense. Now I wonder if you know what each of these tenses are used for, and again you may wish to pause the video to have a quick think about that. So the pluperfect tense is used to talk about events which had already happened before the events being described. For instance, I had already poured myself a glass of water when my mum brought me a lemonade. The imperfect tense is used to describe things in the past. For instance, the weather was horrible, or I was in Spain. The perfect tense is used to talk about actions you have done in the past. For instance, I played tennis, or I went on the bus to London. The present tense is used to talk about what is happening currently or to describe things in the present time. So at the moment, I am watching a YouTube video. The future tense is used to talk about something that will happen in the future. Okay, in the future I will go back to school. Whereas the conditional tense is used to describe something that may happen dependent on some condition. For instance, if I were to win the lottery, I would buy a Mercedes-Benz. So we're now going to go through all 6 of those tenses and I'll show you how they're formed in German. We're going to start off with the pluperfect tense. Now the pluperfect tense is something that is more really A-level German, but it is thrown in the GCSE, and you need to be at least able to recognise it and translate it. But if you can throw it into your writing, that would be even better. So, what is the pluperfect tense? Well, the pluperfect tense is used to talk about events which had already happened before the events being described. For instance, ich hatte schon eine Pizza gegessen und dann habe ich Eis gegessen. Here we can see the pluperfect tense followed by the perfect tense. How would you translate that sentence? Have a think and maybe pause the video. You translate that sentence in the following way. I had already eaten a pizza and then I ate an ice cream. The key word there, schon, meaning already. So, we know that the pluperfect tense is used to talk about events which had already happened before the events are being described. And now we're wondering how it's formed. Well, it's formed with the imperfect tense of haben or sein and the past participle. Okay, so here we have the imperfect tense of haben. Okay, ich hatte. Please repeat after me. Ich hatte. Du hattest. Er hatte. Wir hatten. Ihr hattet. Sie hatten. And then we add this to the past participle, and you notice here regular verbs form their past participle with a g and a t, and irregular with a g and a n. Okay, hopefully when you look at those participles you recognise quite a few, like gekauft, bought, or gelernt, learnt, or gespielt, played, or gemacht, done, or made. Here's our example again. Ich hatte schon eine Pizza gegessen und dann habe ich Eis gegessen. Just like with the perfect tense, some form the pluperfect tense with sein, and these are verbs of movement, like fahren to go, bleiben to stay, gehen to go, fallen to fall, fliegen to fly, kommen to come, laufen to walk. Okay? And the difference between gefahren and gegangen is that fahren often involves a vehicle. For instance, ich war mit dem Auto gefahren. Okay, so we use the imperfect tense of sein plus the past participle. An example of that would be, ich war schon ins Kino gegangen, als meine Mutter mich angerufen hat. I had already gone into the cinema when my mum called me. So going into the cinema is before the mum phoning up. I'd like you to use those tables to help you translate the following 6 sentences. You're going to have to think whether the verb involves movement or not, so whether to use ich hatte or ich war or the various forms. And I've given you some vocab in the orange below to help you with some of the key nouns. I'd like you to pause the audio now to give you time to do that. We're now going to go through the answers. So number 1, I had already bought a bottle. Ich hatte schon eine Flasche gekauft. Number 2, I had already learned French. Ich hatte schon Französisch gelernt. Number 3, he had gone to Paris by train. War mit dem Zug nach Paris gefahren, using war as it's a verb of movement. I had flown to Italy. Ich war nach Italien geflogen. We had watched a film. Wir hatten einen Film gesehen. Number 6, he had stayed in Greece for 3 weeks. War für 3 Wochen in Griechenland geblieben. Now we're going to move on to looking at the imperfect tense. The imperfect tense is used to describe things in the past. For example, ich war für 3 Wochen in Deutschland. Das Wetter war fantastisch und das Essen war lecker. How would you translate these sentences? Pause the video now to have a think. These sentences would be translated as the following. I was in Germany for 3 weeks. The weather was fantastic and the food was delicious. Here we go, the imperfect tense. So we use it to describe things in the past, and the 2 main verbs you'll encounter are the imperfect tense of sein, to be, and haben, to have. So for instance, ich war krank would mean I was ill. Es war toll, it was great. Sie war für eine Woche in Deutschland, she was in Germany for a week. On the other side, ich hatte viele Freunde, I had a lot of friends. Maybe you're talking about primary school. In der Grundschule hatte ich viele Freunde. At primary school I had a lot of friends. Ich hatte Hunger. The Germans literally say I had hunger. Ich hatte Kopfschmerzen, I had a headache. I'd now like you to use that table with the imperfect tense of sein to translate the following 6 sentences. You'll see in the orange box again I've given you the key nouns to help you. I'd like you to pause the video now to give you time to do that. Okay, we're now going to go through the answers. Number 1, the journey was terrible. Die Reise war schrecklich oder furchtbar. Number 2, the traffic jam was long. Der Stau war lang. Number 3, the train was expensive. Der Zug war teuer. Number 4, the food was delicious. Das Essen war lecker. Number 5, the weather was fantastic. Das Wetter war fantastisch. Number 6, the bath was dirty. Das Bad war dreckig. We're now going to look at the perfect tense. What is the perfect tense? Well, the perfect tense is used to describe an action that you have done in the past. For instance, ich habe einen Film gesehen. I have seen a film, or I saw a film. Oder ich bin mit dem Auto gefahren. I travelled by car. The basic ingredients for the perfect tense are the subject, which I put in green, ich meaning I, the auxiliary verb, which is the helping verb for which we either use a part of sein or haben, and the past participle. Now, your choice of auxiliary verb depends on whether there's movement involved. If there is movement involved, we use sein. If not, we use haben. I like to think of it as a burger. So we have the subject, the auxiliary verb, and the past participle. Ich habe gegessen. I have eaten, or I ate. Ich bin gefahren. I travelled. Notice we use bin for the travelling involving movement, but haben for the gegessen, the eating that doesn't involve movement. We're now going to look at the parts of haben along with the past participles. So we have the regular past participles ending in ge and te, and the irregular verbs starting with ge ending in n. Okay, and again, hopefully you recognize them. So if you wanted to say I have played or I played, it would be ich habe gespielt. If you wanted to say we have seen or we saw, wir haben gesehen. Okay, so you always need 3 parts. Now we're looking at the perfect tense with sein. Okay, remembering these verbs all involve movement. So if you wanted to say I went by vehicle, I travelled by vehicle, it would be ich bin gefahren. If you wanted to say we flew, okay, thinking about flying on a plane, wir sind geflogen. If you want to say he fell, it would be ist gefallen. Again, 3 parts. I'd like you to use that now, both of those tables, to help you translate the following 6 sentences into German, okay? Remember, if you're travelling to somewhere, you use nach as a preposition. Again, I'd like you to pause the video now to give you time to do that. We're now going to go through the answers. Number 1, I bought a t-shirt. Ich habe ein T-Shirt gekauft. Number 2, I learnt German. Ich habe Deutsch gelernt. Number 3, he went to London by train. Ist mit dem Zug nach London gefahren. Number 4, I flew to Berlin. Ich bin nach Berlin geflogen. Number 5, we watched a film. Wir haben einen Film gesehen. Number 6, he stayed in Germany for a week. Ist für eine Woche in Deutschland geblieben. Moving on to the present tense. The present tense is used to describe what's happening currently or in the present time. The present tense is used to say what you're doing right now, to say what you do regularly or always, or describe something ongoing. Here are some of the common present tense verbs. And if you don't already know all of these parts, it would be a really good idea over the next 2 weeks to learn them off by heart. You can point to yourself and your imaginary friends and say, ich bin, du bist, ist, sie ist, wir sind, ihr seid, sie sind, sie sind. And it's really important to know all of these common present tense verbs. The future tense. So we form the future tense with a part of werden and the infinitive. It's really easy. Okay, so I'd like you to use that to help you translate the following. I'll give you an example. I will play basketball would be ich werde Basketball spielen. Okay, so the infinitive goes to the end. Again, I'd like you to pause the video now to give you time to translate those 6 sentences into German. Okay, I'm now going to go through the answers. Number 1, I will play football. Ich werde Fußball spielen. Number 2, you singular will eat chips. Du wirst Pommes essen. Number 3, he will drink water. Wird Wasser trinken. Number 4, we will sing. Wir werden singen. Number 4, you plural will do homework. Ihr werdet Hausaufgaben machen. Number 6, they will speak German. Sie werden Deutsch sprechen. And I hope that you've given all of your nouns a capital letter, as all nouns in German need a capital letter. On to the final one of the tenses, the conditional tense. The conditional tense is often used with wenn clauses. For instance, wenn ich mehr Geld hätte, würde ich einen Urlaub in Asien machen. If I were to have more money, I would go on holiday in Asia. Wenn ich reich wäre, würde ich eine große Party organisieren. If I were rich, I would organize a big party. So we form the conditional tense with the part ich würde, du würdest, er, sie, es würde, wir würden, ihr würdet, sie würden, plus the infinitive. You may also have seen ich möchte, I would like, but for today we're going to look at ich würde, I would. So if you wanted to say I would sing, it would be ich würde singen. If you want to say he would drink, würde trinken. I'd now like you to translate the following 5 sentences, and again I've given you some words in the orange box to help you with those. I'd like you to write down your translations in your book and pause the audio now to give you time to do that. Okay, I'm now going to go through the answers. Number 1, I would play badminton. Ich würde Federball spielen. Number 2, you singular would eat meat. Du würdest Fleisch essen. Number 3, he would speak French. Würde Französisch sprechen. Number 4, if I had more money, I would travel around the world. Wenn ich mehr Geld hätte, würde ich die Welt reisen. Number 5, if I were rich, I would buy a castle. Wenn ich reich wäre, würde ich ein Schloss kaufen. Your homework for today is to translate this passage into English and to send it to me at jwatson@stbeads.cams.sch.uk. This passage includes all of the tenses that we've gone through in our grammar video, and I'm just going to read it to you now. Letztes Wochenende bin ich ins Kino gegangen, Mulan zu sehen. Ich war schon ins Kino gegangen, als meine Mutter mich angerufen hat. Sie war verärgert, weil mein Zimmer sehr unordentlich war. Ich habe gesagt, dass ich es später aufräumen würde. Der Film war sehr gut und ich würde es empfehlen. Ich liebe Aktionfilme, weil sie spannend sind. Nächsten Monat werde ich wieder ins Kino gehen. Wenn ich mehr Geld hätte, würde ich öfter ins Kino gehen. If you get stuck on any of the words, why not look at dich.cc, which I put below, and look up the individual words to help you with your translation. I expect all of you to send me in the translation, and I'm going to give 3 merits for the first entry, and then I'll give 1 merit for every good entry after that. I will be checking to see that you've done it. I hope you're all well. Auf Wiedersehen!